Well, to look at this further, we're joined from our central London studio by Michael Stevens, Deputy Director at the Royal Institute Services Institute. Good morning to you. Do you think that boots on the ground perhaps is a step too far to contemplate at this point in time?
Yes, I do. And I think it's not our responsibility to fight the wars for the Iraqi Arabs or the Iraqi Kurds. I think there is a moral case to be made for the intervention that we've made so far. I think it's been well documented in the last couple of weeks about the serious situation of the Yazidis in Sinjar and the fact that the Kurdish Peshmerga forces have been struggling against an ISIS which has really been emboldened by recent captures of American weapons and equipment and has really been pushing forward quite hard against Kurdish areas, of which there are many interests from many different players because Erbil is obviously quite a cosmopolitan city. I myself go there a lot, and it is quite a lot more open than most places in the region. And so I think there are vested interests there in keeping that city safe and keeping the interests of the Kurds safe. I don't really agree with Paddy Ashdown that this necessarily means we're supporting Kurdish independence. What it means is we're supporting the Kurds' right to defend themselves from an extremist terrorist organisation.
But then doesn't that mean ultimately a breakup, that we will be supporting a breakup of the country?
Well, it depends really, because, you know, you've got this new process going on in Baghdad where you've got the new Prime Minister-elect who's trying to form a government there, Mr. Abadi. Nouri Al-Maliki seems to have agreed last night to step down. That's a big step forward because I think that the Kurds can actually buy in to a political solution that doesn't include Maliki. Of course, it's clear the Kurds do want their own state, but it's a question of how and when. If you look at the financial resources that Kurdistan currently has, they're not really financially solvent enough outside their oil exports, which are blocked at the moment. So I don't think that the time is right, really, for Kurdish independence, whether we give them arms or not, because there's political and economic factors at play.
We're in the position now where Britain's poised to arm the Kurds, but what type of weaponry could we possibly be speaking about?
Well, at the moment, Britain's obviously been involved in sending ammunition to the Kurds, but that's not going to be enough because the type of weaponry they're up against is well armoured and needs more than some of the weapons that the Kurds currently have. So we need some kind of heavy anti-tank armour-piercing rounds. We need artillery to go in there. We need some way of command and control so that they can target ISIS artillery units. I think what I would say as well is that we're only arming, it seems, one faction of the Kurds. There are also Syrian Kurds that are fighting ISIS as well. So actually in both countries there is a fight against ISIS from Kurdish forces, and so it's a larger debate as to who we support, how we do it. There's also PKK, Turkish Kurds fighting as well, so it's a very convoluted process, but I do think that the Kurds do need weapons and they do need them very quickly.
You describe it as a convoluted process. That's really the crux of the matter. It's really a question of who would be armed, and really are there allegiances to the international community eventually?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I think that what we can say is that the Kurdistan regional government, led by Masoud Barzani, is not going to be handing off weapons to terrorists or to extremist factions anytime soon. I think we know that if we put weapons into the hands of the Peshmerga, they will be used for one reason, which is the defense of Kurdish territory or Kurdistan, and I think that's where it stops. The only danger here really is if, for example, the Peshmerga get into a sort of a long-term conflict with ISIS, they get pushed back and they abandon their weapons like the Iraqi army did, and then ISIS picks up more weapons and more equipment, which could be a sort of snowball, if you like. But I do think that ultimately the Peshmerga will probably not be in the same position that the Iraqi army were in. They seem to have held their lines a little bit better, and I think that if they've got just that little bit more support, they'll probably do a much better job than the Iraqi army.
A more general question now, really, about ISIS and its threat to the entire Middle East. What's your take on that?
Well, of course, they are an extremely dangerous group. I mean, I think that the clue is in the name. They want to set up an Islamic State. So they're now putting governing structures in the regions that they are in control of, and they're pushing westwards into other areas of Syria against the regime of Bashar al-Assad. They're pushing south in towards Baghdad. They are a threat to both these countries. They're also quite a threat to Turkey nowadays. I think that the Turks have finally woken up to quite how serious this threat is, and of course Jordan as well. So I think that they are a threat to the region, but they can be contained provided the right policies are put in place now, provided that we're firm about it. But I would say this. I do not think that either what the US is doing or the United Kingdom or France is doing is designed to defeat them. To defeat ISIS or Islamic State, you've got to go into Syria, you've got to take a sustained campaign, and I don't think anybody really wants to do that. So we may have to come to terms with ISIS being in the region for quite a long time.
Michael Stevens, thank you, Deputy Director at the Royal United Services Institute.